I always thought my life had reached a place of peace. I wasn't rich, but I had my home, the same one I built with my own hands over 30 years ago. It was modest, but it was mine. Brick by brick, I had poured my energy, my sacrifices, and my dreams into that house. Every corner held a memory. The kitchen where my late wife used to hum while making coffee. The backyard where my son took his first steps. The living room where we'd sit together during storms, pretending not to be afraid of the thunder. At that stage in my life, I didn't expect much. Just a quiet routine. A cup of coffee in the morning, the radio humming in the background, and the comfort of knowing I had done my part. I had worked, paid off the mortgage, raised my children the best way I knew how. What more could a man want? And my son, he was doing well, at least that's what I thought. Married, working, busy, always in a rush. We didn't talk every day, but when we did, he called me Pops and laughed at the same old jokes. I trusted him. I believed we had a bond that life couldn't break. Looking back now, I realize how fragile peace can be. Sometimes, it disappears without warning. And sometimes, it leaves behind a silence that you never thought possible. I wasn't the kind of father who said I love you all the time. I showed it in other ways, by showing up, by working hard, by making sure there was food on the table and a roof over our heads. And my son, he always knew that. He never doubted where he stood in my heart. He was a good boy growing up. Always curious, always asking questions. I remember once, when he was about 10, he asked me how electricity worked. I tried explaining it the best I could, using a flashlight and some old wires in the garage. He was fascinated, not by the science, really, but by the fact that I took the time to explain it. That's what fatherhood felt like to me, being there, even when you didn't have all the answers. As he got older, I was proud of him. He wasn't perfect, but who is? He made mistakes, got into trouble a couple of times when he was young, but nothing serious. He always came back home. Always said, "Sorry, Pops." And I always forgave. There was a part of me that thought, no, believed, that when the time came, my son would be the one to look after me. Not out of obligation, but out of love. Because I had given him everything I had. Not just the house or the money, but the years. The laughter. The quiet nights driving back from football practice. The moments we never took pictures of, but that still live in my mind. I trusted him like I trusted the sun would rise in the morning. And that's what makes what happened so hard to accept. It started with a visit like any other. He came over on a Sunday afternoon. Brought me some groceries, like he sometimes did. We sat on the porch. It was a warm day, the kind that makes you feel like everything's okay, even when you don't know what's coming. We talked about nothing in particular, sports, gas prices, how fast the years go by. Then, as we were finishing our coffee, he brought it up. "Hey Pops, I was thinking. You've got a lot of paperwork on that house. Maybe it's time to put everything in order." I looked at him and nodded. "Yeah, maybe you're right." He leaned forward, speaking softer. "Why don't you let me take those documents to my accountant? He can make sure everything's up to date, make it easier when the time comes." When the time comes. Those words hit me a little strange, but I brushed it off. I'm not a suspicious man. I never had reason to be. He was my son. So, I went into the old wooden cabinet in my bedroom, pulled out the manila folder I had kept for years, title deed, tax receipts, maintenance records. Everything that proved that house was mine. He looked through it briefly, nodded, and said, "Yeah, this is what I need. I'll take it to my guy. He's good, don't worry." "Okay," I said. "But bring them back soon. I like to know where my things are." He smiled, gave me a pat on the back. "Of course, Pops. Just a couple days." And then he left. I watched his car disappear down the road, not knowing that moment would mark the last time I saw him face to face. At first, I didn't think much of it. A few days passed. No word from him. I figured he got busy, he always did. Work, kids, traffic, life. You know how it goes. I told myself not to worry. He said he'd bring the documents back soon. I believed him. A week went by. I called him. Straight to voicemail. Left a message. "Hey, son. Just checking in. Let me know how it went with your accountant. No rush, just want to make sure everything's alright." No reply. Another week. I called again. This time, the phone rang, then stopped. No message. No call back. I tried not to let it bother me. Maybe he was traveling. Maybe something came up. I made excuses for him the way parents do when they don't want to believe their child could be avoiding them. But deep down, a quiet unease started to settle in my chest. It wasn't loud, not yet. It was more like a shadow moving in the background, something you sense before you see it. I started checking my phone more often. Leaving it next to me while I ate, while I watched TV, even when I slept. Every buzz made my heart skip. But it was never him. Then I called his wife. She answered, but her voice was cold. Tight. "Oh, he's been busy. I'll tell him you called." That's all she said. No warmth. No follow-up. That was the first time I felt it. Something wasn't right. Something was slipping, and I couldn't stop it. And I didn't know it yet, but that silence? It wasn't just distance. It was a door quietly closing behind me. I kept calling. Not obsessively, just once a day, maybe every other day. I didn't want to be a burden. I just wanted to hear his voice. But the phone stayed silent. No hey, pops. No laughter. No explanations. It's strange how a voice can disappear from your life without warning. One day, it's part of your daily rhythm. The next, it's just a memory, echoing inside your head, softening with time until you start to wonder if you're remembering it right. There were nights I sat in my chair staring at the phone, replaying old voicemails. I had one saved from his birthday a few years ago. He had called me late, already a little tipsy, but his words were sweet. "Love you, old man. Don't ever forget that." I listened to that message like it was gospel. I must have played it 50 times in a week. And still, no answer. No return calls. No texts. No sorry, been busy. Just nothing. I thought about driving to his house. Knocking on the door. Asking for the truth to my son's face. But something held me back. Maybe pride. Maybe fear. Maybe the quiet voice inside me that already knew what I didn't want to accept. He was gone. Not dead. Not missing. Just gone from my life by choice. And that's the kind of loss no funeral prepares you for. I don't know what made me go. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the silence growing too loud. Or maybe it was just an old man trying to find some kind of answer when everything else had gone quiet. I took the bus into town and walked the few blocks to the county records office. It had been years since I'd stepped inside. The fluorescent lights were harsh, the air cold, sterile. I felt out of place, like I didn't belong there, but I needed to know. I gave the clerk my address and asked for the property records. She clicked away on her keyboard, chewing gum, not looking me in the eye. Then she frowned, squinted at the screen, and asked, "Are you sure that's the address?" "Yeah," I said. "I've lived there most of my life." She turned the monitor slightly and pointed. "Well, it looks like the property was transferred last month. It's no longer under your name." My stomach dropped. I felt the blood drain from my face, like the ground had shifted beneath me. "Transferred to who?" I asked, though I already knew. She looked at the name, then back at me with a cautious expression. "Jason Miller," she said. "My son's name." I couldn't speak. I couldn't even breathe properly. There was a printout. I asked for a copy. As I held it in my hands, I saw the signature. Mine, or at least, it looked like mine. But I never signed any transfer. I stood there in the lobby of that office, holding a paper that told me I no longer owned the home I had built with my own hands. The place where my wife and I had planted roots. Where we raised our children. Where I thought I would live until my last breath. It was gone. Just like that. Taken, by the very person I trusted most. They say it's just a house. Bricks. Wood. A roof. But it wasn't just a house to me. It was the story of my life. That front door? I replaced it myself after it got damaged in a storm back in '92. The kitchen window? That's where I used to watch my wife watering her roses every morning. The crack in the hallway tile? My son made that when he dropped his school backpack one day, too heavy with books he never read. I lived a whole life inside those walls. I fought for that home. I went without many things to keep it. Skipped vacations. Drove an old truck until the wheels nearly fell off. But I never missed a payment. Never thought I'd lose it to a stranger, let alone to my own flesh and blood. And now, every memory I held dear felt tainted. I walked back from that office with the wind colder on my skin. I passed by shops I used to go to with my wife. I saw a father walking with his young son and had to look away. That night, I sat alone at the edge of my bed, holding that printed record of transfer. My hands shook as I tried to understand what I'd done wrong. Was I naive? Too trusting? Or was this the moment all fathers secretly fear, the day your child stops seeing you as a parent and starts seeing you as a burden? I didn't cry. Not yet. I just sat there, surrounded by the silence of a house that no longer belonged to me, wondering how something so precious could be taken so easily, and why the person I loved most could be the one to take it. At first, I kept it to myself. I was too ashamed. Too confused. I didn't know how to explain it, how to even say the words out loud. How do you tell someone that your own son took your home and vanished? But the silence was too heavy to carry alone. So, I started talking to people. Not in a desperate way, more like a man looking for pieces of a puzzle he didn't know was missing. I spoke to my neighbor, Carl. He's lived next door for over 20 years. I asked if he'd seen my son lately. Carl looked down, rubbed the back of his neck, and said, "Yeah, actually. A few weeks back. He was outside with a guy in a suit, taking pictures of the house. I figured maybe he was getting ready to sell or refinance." Sell. That word hit me like a punch in the chest. Then I spoke to my niece. She works at a local real estate office. I didn't give her too many details, just asked if she could check if the house had been listed. Her voice dropped when she called me back. "Uncle. It's already under contract. The buyer's name is listed. It's all moving fast." I didn't know whether to scream or collapse. The people around me started to realize something was wrong. Some looked at me with pity. Others avoided the conversation altogether, like betrayal was contagious. I heard whispers. "He gave the house to his son, didn't he? Maybe he's not telling the whole story." But I was telling the truth. I knew it. And still, it felt like the world didn't believe me. Or worse, didn't care. That's the thing about betrayal. It isolates you. Makes you question your own reality. Makes you feel like the life you built never really belonged to you in the first place. But slowly, through those conversations, I pieced it together. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't confusion. My son had planned it. Quietly. Carefully. And the hardest part wasn't the loss of the house, it was realizing he'd been walking away from me long before he ever stopped answering the phone. I finally gathered the courage to confront him. I didn't go there to yell or make a scene. I just wanted to hear it from his mouth. A reason. An apology. Something. I stood on his doorstep with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. When he opened the door, he looked surprised, but not like he was happy to see me. More like I was a problem that had come back. "Pops," he said flatly. "Can we talk?" I asked. He stepped outside, closed the door behind him. I stood there, an old man in the yard of a house I helped him move into, facing the boy I had raised, now a man I barely recognized. I pulled the folded county document from my pocket. "You sold the house," I said. "You took it from me." He didn't deny it. Didn't even flinch. "I had to," he said. "You're getting older. Things needed to be taken care of. You could have talked to me," I said. "We could have done it together. But you disappeared. You left me." He crossed his arms, his jaw tight. Then he said the words that will echo in my heart until the day I die. "You already had your life, Dad. You got to live it. Now it's my turn." Just like that. As if the years I spent building that home, raising him, sacrificing for him, meant nothing now. As if I was some old chapter he'd closed to make room for his own story. I stood there, stunned. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I just looked at my son and saw, for the first time, that I didn't know him anymore. And maybe I hadn't for a long time. He turned and walked back inside, leaving me standing alone on the front lawn like a stranger. I didn't knock again. I sat on the bus ride home with my fists clenched and my heart torn in two. One part of me wanted to walk straight into a lawyer's office. File a claim. Call the police. Prove that signature wasn't mine. Fight like hell to get my house back. The other part of me, the father part, wasn't so sure. Because how do you take your own son to court? How do you stand in front of a judge and say, "That man, the one I fed, clothed, carried when he was sick, that man stole from me"? No matter how deep the wound, a father's love doesn't just vanish. It twists. It confuses. It questions everything. Was it my fault? Did I make him feel entitled? Did I spoil him? Or maybe I just didn't teach him right from wrong the way I thought I had. I spent nights pacing the living room floor, the floor that used to be mine. I wrote letters I never sent. Replayed conversations we had when he was younger, looking for signs I missed. Moments where I might have turned left instead of right. And I asked myself, again and again. Do I fight for what's mine? Or do I hold on to what little remains of being his father? Because if I go after him legally, I might win the house back, but I'll lose him forever. And if I don't, well, maybe I already have. There's no manual for this kind of pain. No clear line between justice and love when it comes to your own blood. Just silence. Questions. And a slow breaking of the heart that no one else can see. The house is quiet now. Too quiet. I still wake up at the same time every morning, make the same coffee, sit in the same chair by the window, but nothing feels the same. I'm living in a borrowed room now, in a friend's guest house behind his garage. It's clean, safe, and I'm grateful, but it's not home. Home is where your memories live. Where your footsteps are worn into the floorboards. Where your heart still waits for familiar sounds that never come anymore. There are days I go the entire afternoon without speaking to a soul. The phone stays silent. No calls. No texts. No visitors. I see other old men at the park talking with their sons, tossing baseballs to their grandkids, laughing like time never touched them. I try not to envy them. But I do. Because the truth is, being left behind by the world is one kind of pain, but being left behind by your own child is something else entirely. It makes you question your worth. It makes you wonder what all those years of sacrifice were for. And in the quiet of the night, I sometimes ask myself, what am I now? A father with no son. A man with no home. A memory no one wants to remember. But I keep going. Because what else can you do, when the world moves on without you? You breathe. You get up. You hold on to whatever little dignity you have left. And you pray, if not for justice, then for peace. In the quiet moments, when the world slows down and there's nothing left but your own thoughts, you start asking different questions. Not about houses or money. Not even about betrayal. You ask, did I love well? Did I give what I could? Did I leave something behind that mattered? For most of my life, I believed a man's value was in what he could build. A house. A family. A future. But now, sitting here without any of those things, I've come to realize something more painful, and maybe more true. You can give your heart to someone, raise them with all the love you have, and still, they may walk away. Not because you failed. Not because you weren't enough. But because life, pride, or greed got louder than love. And yet, I don't regret loving him. I don't regret the nights I stayed up late when he was sick. I don't regret the sacrifices I made so he could have more. Because that's what fathers do. We give. Sometimes more than we should. But now I see that love, real love, isn't about what you hold on to. It's about what you're willing to let go of. I've lost my house. I may never get back the relationship I once had with my son. But I haven't lost myself. I haven't lost the man I chose to be, even when it hurt. And maybe, at the end of life, that's what truly matters. Not what you owned. Not even who stayed. But that you loved, fully. That you gave, honestly. And that you can look in the mirror and say, I didn't become bitter. I didn't turn away. I kept my heart open, even when it broke. If you've ever been hurt by someone you raised. If you've ever been forgotten by the very people you gave your life to. If you've ever sat alone wondering how love could turn into silence. Then you're not alone. I used to think my story was rare. Shameful, even. But the more I talk to people, at the park, at the store, at the doctor's office, the more I realize, this pain has many faces. Different names. But the same ache. There are more of us out here than you think. People who gave everything. And were left with nothing but memories. People who still carry love in their hearts for those who walked away. People who wonder, late at night, was I really so easy to forget? To you, I say this. Your worth is not defined by how others treated you. Your love was not wasted. You are not alone. If this story touched something in you, if it reminded you of someone, or even of yourself, please take a moment to let me know. Leave a comment below. I may be just one man with a broken heart, but hearing your story might help mend a little peace of mind. And if you believe more people need to hear stories like this, real stories, human stories, then please, like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes, healing starts with knowing we're not the only ones. Thank you for listening.